I want to help you buy and sell homes with confidence. My name's Eric Kelly, and I'm a realtor serving the Philadelphia suburbs. Been in real estate for a while, but before real estate, I graduated from Georgetown Law and won multiple awards as a practicing lawyer. I want to bring my nearly a combined decade of real estate and legal experience to help you. I grew up in the Philly suburbs, I live here now, and I want it to be home for you. So let's get started making that happen. You want to relocate to the Philadelphia suburbs and you just don't know where to start. You don't know which town fits your lifestyle, which schools you should be looking at, the taxes, the commute. You don't even know how to start the process because you're not living in the area. Well, good news. Not only did I grow up here, but I relocated here too. After nearly a decade as an attorney in Washington, D.C., my wife and I decided it was time to move back up, be close to our families, and start our own family. And I want to take all of the lessons we learned, all of the mistakes that we made, and help you relocate easily and confidently. We are back. Today we are talking still about relocation, but as we discussed the main line yesterday, relocation in general in the video before that. Today we are on to our next broad geographic location, and that is Chester County, Pennsylvania. Let's go. It's the county I grew up in. It is the county I currently live in. My sister lives there. My parents lived there for years. I have family there. It is fantastic. But it is not just one type of living. If you watch my mainline guide, you'll know that each little town, each township, as you go to these different places, they all behave differently. And I don't just mean you can get different styles of houses or the price points are different, which they will be, but your commutes are going to be different. The access to shopping, to town centers, your walkability, your commute, whether that's into Philly, if you're still going to be commuting down to DC, if you're relocating up from there, if you're going up to New York, out to Princeton, whatever it might be, where you live in Chester County is going to affect those things, and maybe pretty drastically, even if it's just a 15-minute difference in exact location. So we are going to talk about how there are walkable boroughs, towns in Chester County. So for this, we're thinking Kennett, Westchester, Phoenixville. All of these have thriving downtowns. They are their own self-sustaining community. So if you're leaving a city like my wife and I were when we relocated back to the Philadelphia suburbs, we still wanted some energy. We wanted a place to be able to go with our kids. We wanted restaurants to eat at, bars to drink at. So we moved close to one of these towns. You can also get pure, commuter-friendly, nice, classic residential communities. For this, we're thinking places like Exton, like Downingtown, that have their own location. They do have great shopping, but they're very close to train stations. It's very easy to get into Philly, back out from Philly, where you're not having to deal with major driving commuting. And then you have mainline adjacent towns. We talked about Malvern and Paoli in our mainline video. These are Chester County towns, Berwyn. And then you have full seclusion here that you get in a way that the main line kind of offers in places, but here you have full dedicated swaths of Chester County where you can have a ton of privacy, a ton of land. You're thinking that classic Philly suburbs. There are barns. It's an Andrew Wyeth painting. So these are places like Willistown, Chad's Ford, out where I grew up. We grew up right next to there were horse stables in the center of our neighborhood. Our home backed up to a farm with a field, and then other places like Pennsbury, the Brandywine Valley. So you truly get the full gamut of Philly suburbs living just in this one county. So what you're probably thinking is, that's a lot to look at. I'm relocating. I don't have 15 weekends in a row I can come down and figure out how Chester County lives. I need some help figuring out which fit into each bucket. But that should start with some internal reflection, figuring out exactly what you want in terms of lifestyle, in terms of commute, in terms of location, so that when you are coming either down from New York, over from Princeton, up from DC, just out from Philly, that you're not wasting a ton of time figuring out exactly how you want to live and which towns fit that lifestyle. You already have that in mind. You know which towns that fit. So then you are just looking at 2, 3, maybe 4 different locations and the homes available that fit your life there. So it turns into like 2 weekends of looking. You're not running yourself ragged. You're able to only see homes that you know you're going to be at least partially interested in. And the whole process gets easier. You move in faster. You like me more if you're working with me. I hope you are. Seriously, I hope you are. But even if you're working with someone else and you just want some interesting information on Chester County, I hope all of this helps you have a cleaner process, a faster process, and ultimately a process that leads to a lack of regret. I hate seeing relocators move somewhere and realize, oh, we're going to have to move in another 5 years just because we didn't find the exact right place for us. So the goal of this video and what I'm going to try and cover in this video is to make it so that you don't regret your decision and you can move confidently and smoothly. So just briefly, I'll cover the topics that we'll go through in this video. We're going to talk about transportation, the major hubs, train, car in Chester County. I'm going to run through, obviously not every town. Chester County is a big place. It takes a long time to drive, like from north to south, east to west across it. So we're going to go through the big ones, the ones that people think about, the ones that people search most commonly. Obviously, if you have questions about the smaller ones, I grew up there, so hopefully I can answer them. If I can't, I'm not very good at my job. We'll talk about the townships that all those towns rest in. That'll get into schools a little bit, but we'll talk about school districts. Obviously, I am not here to tell you which school you should be basing your move on. Maybe you don't care about schools at all. Maybe they're all you're focusing on. I'm happy to discuss objective rankings, objective metrics, but making that school decision is something for you to do. We'll talk briefly about taxes, the differences from other parts of the Philadelphia suburbs. I think it's particularly useful to compare it to the main line because they're essentially next to each other and there are some differences. And we'll talk about how all that factors into what you're going to be paying in the real world, which is monthly payments most likely. Then we'll talk about things to do in Chester County, things to do outside in Chester County, get into some frequently asked questions, some FAQs for you. And with the things to do with the frequently asked questions, I'm going to hit the biggest things. I'm going to go through each town individually in subsequent videos. So if you're like, look, you mentioned this thing, you mentioned Longwood and you mentioned Phoenixville. What about everything else that happens in Chester County? Well, if you go to my Instagram, every week I put out a list of things that happen in Chester County. So going over each little thing would be impossible in this video. I'd be talking to you for 4 hours. You're like, Eric, these videos are long enough. And I know that's why I'm trying to talk super fast right now. But that's the plan for today. So I'm going to dive right into transportation. We'll walk through that and then keep on chugging along. Hopefully this becomes more like a 25-minute videos, not 40-minute videos like yesterday, but I get excited talking about this stuff and I want to give you guys a ton of information. So here we are. As always, do the social media stuff, like, follow, subscribe. I put out stuff to do on the main line, stuff to do in Chester County every week on my Instagram, on TikTok, on the YouTube Shorts, on Facebook, whatever social platform you're on. I promise I am there too. I'm even on Threads because I'm young and vibrant and youthful. And that's how people communicate, apparently, these days. I even put some stuff on LinkedIn. If you want to figure out what to do this weekend on LinkedIn, maybe I should start doing that. That'd be pretty funny. But anyway, you know what to do with all this stuff. If you like this content, follow and you'll get more of it. Yay. Transportation. So transportation is one of the most important factors in understanding Chester County. We went through the main line yesterday. The whole main line, the name of it is based on a rail line that is operational today. No town is going to be that far from a train station, even if you're in like the rural area of the main line. It's probably max 15, 20 minutes to a train station. That's a pretty easy way to get into Philly. Then you have access to DC, New York, obviously, from there, if your station doesn't just go straight to New York or DC. But Chester County is a little different. You can be quite a ways away from a train station. For example, I think arguably the closest train station to where I grew up would be going into Wilmington, Delaware. I think that would legit be the fastest one. So if you are going to be living somewhere like that, like in the Chadds Ford area, or even deeper out into the suburbs when you're getting out past Coatesville, Cheney, Lincoln University, all those areas, you're going to be driving. So understanding how that drive is going to work for you, depending on where you're commuting, even if you're commuting into KOP, King of Prussia, that can be quite a journey from certain parts of Chester County. So we're going to dive into that in a bit. So the major railway that services Chester County is SEPTA's Paoli-Thorndale Regional Line. So this is going to certainly go through towns like Paoli, Malvern, Exton, Downingtown, and Thorndale. So you'll have access from all those. I think they're actually about to build one, or there are plans to build one right now that'll hit Phoenixville as well, and even Pottstown. Shout out Pottstown. I have friends that live in Pottstown. They're the best. So if you do have or really want access to that train line, looking in those towns is where you should start focusing. Because if you're going to look further out than that, it might just make more time sense for you to commute. But then if you don't have a car because you're moving out of a city, that's an added cost into all of this. Do not buy a car before you buy a home. Your credit's going to be all over the place. It's going to mess up the deal. Just wait until you have closed, and then we can start messing with cars. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but I want to offer you something absolutely free. So I have put together a complete relocation guide all the way from deciding we want to move to the Philadelphia suburbs through closing. And I want to give it to you so that your relocation process is simple. So I interviewed a ton of relocators, past clients, current clients, pulled from some personal experience in this on what made our relocation process easy. And I put over 100 hours into creating this guide just for you. So if you're interested, either check out the link in the description below or just DM me relocating and I will get that guide right over to you. All right, back to the video. And then, so many residents obviously are not going to have access to that train line or any train line in a way that makes sense. So we need to understand the driving routes too. And so arguably the biggest one for Chester County is 202. Shout out 202. Even when I was in Delaware for a while, 202 was the name in commuting. So this is going to hit Chester County, Malvern, Great Valley, King of Prussia. It kind of runs along the broader mainline area. You can get off pretty easily and get to the main line off of 202. Route 30, Lancaster Avenue, whichever you want to call it, big east-west corridor, runs along the main line for a big stretch of it. So this can be extremely useful, but a lot of development along Route 30, a lot of traffic lights, local congestion, especially during rush hour, can get bad. So understanding how different times of day is going to affect your commute. I know when my wife and I were moving, and I've talked to a few relocators now about this, who have bought and moved up here, but we always ended up, because you're working, you're dealing with family life, whatever obligations you have in life. So you end up like looking when you're trying to relocate at night a lot. And so you put in the address and it's 30 minutes. That's totally fine. And what you need to do is look during rush hour, both morning and afternoon. And that afternoon one will vary a bit depending on where you live. But a 30-minute commute can easily turn into an hour commute at rush hour. So if you want to be spending 2 hours a day, if that's the time you're going to be commuting, that's something you should understand before we're offering on homes. So understanding that. Beyond that, you're also going to deal with the Pennsylvania Turnpike, particularly if you're in the Exton, Downingtown, West Whiteland area. PA Turnpike kind of cooks. It has bad times of day, but if you catch it when it's moving, you're cooking. I actually don't mind the PA Turnpike that much. And then you're also going to be dealing with Route 3, Route 322. And so understanding the manner in which you're going to be commuting, and then once you have that manner down, the actual commute that you're going to be taking every day and seeing it at different times of day. If you're relocating, coming down and actually driving it at different kinds of day, I think can be very useful, because everyone's like, yeah, I can deal with 50 minutes each way in the car. Like, it doesn't feel that bad. You're like, oh, I'll put on a podcast. It'll be great. And then 3 months into doing it, and you realize, oh, an hour and 40 minutes a day is like a lot of day for me to commit to this. Now I'm starting to regret this a bit. So feeling it in practice, I think, is a good thing for relocators to do on one of those weekends that you're up and visiting. Come in Friday night and you'll see it naturally. So understanding all of that is important, but let's dive into why you're probably here, the towns. So we're going to run through a bunch of the towns in Chester County. I think we're going to go through like 17 of them really quick. But these are going to be brief. It's going to be a couple sentences on each just to give you a sense. Like I said before in the video, I'm going to be doing longer form videos on each of these towns with restaurants, things to do, where the homes are, what the pricing is like, all of that. So this is really to give you a bit of a taste test before you actually order one of these towns, if that makes sense. So let's start Chester County. Might as well start with Westchester. I would argue this is like the most downtowny town in Chester County. It is fully sustainable. I would say the best pizza in the Philly suburbs is in Chester County, actually. But really standalone, great restaurants, coffee shops, boutiques. There's nightlife. You have Westchester University right there. Shout out to my cousin who's going to be starting there in the fall. And then you have the surrounding townships that people, I think, automatically include in Westchester. So East and West Goshen, all very suburban feel, but you have access to that town. What you don't have is a train station in that town. So if you want that full suburban feel, you're out of the city, but with plenty to do, Westchester is a great place to look. I love Westchester. Now let's talk about Phoenixville. So we're going to talk about Paoli later. We are right between Phoenixville and Paoli. We fell in love with it. Bridge Street is the main strip in Phoenixville. Tons of bars, tons of restaurants, a lot to do, great trails around it. You get a little more affordability once you get north of that Paoli mainline adjacent window. So you get a little more bang for your buck, a little more land, a little more space, a little more square footage. But lively weekend atmosphere. They shut down in the nice weather. They shut down the main strip in Phoenixville every weekend. So you fully walkable, live music, the whole deal. It's great. And then Kennett Square. I grew up very close to Kennett Square, between Kennett and Chadds Ford. Very charming small town experience. It feels like a town where if you're like a businessman in New York and your wife is from Phoenixville, you're going to lose her to a Christmas tree salesman, and that's going to be a tough go for you. So you might as well move here and become the Christmas tree salesman. But it's beautiful, very close to Longwood Gardens, very close to the Brandywine Valley, a lot of history here, a lot of older home stock, but also Chester County has a lot more new builds than the mainline does. So if you're interested in that, something to look into. They're typically a little further west where there's more land to develop, but you can find them interspersed around these more developed standalone towns. Now, Malvern, I'm going to be driving through Malvern probably 4 more times today for a few videos for clients. And so it's a smaller borough. This is what I would call mainline adjacent. Great rail access here. Home prices are going to be a little more elevated than some other places in Chester County because you're paying a bit of that mainline premium. But you have a wider range of options here. So there's townhomes, larger single family homes, and kind of everything in between in Malvern. Very convenient, can feel very residential, great access to both the mainline and the western suburbs. It's a great place. Then Downingtown, I would say it's a practical choice in Chester County. You have strong local identity, very good rail access, pretty good pricing there. Very easy access to all of Chester County. It's a great place to live. And then Exton, another, I would say, convenience hub of Chester County. Not typically chosen if you want a walkable feel, but really good shopping, very easy access to other restaurants, regional rail, Route 202, 30, PA Turnpike, very easy to get all of your errands done. It's a good practical choice for Chester County. Chad's Ford, shout out. I like to think of it as the most scenic and culturally distinctive part of Chester County, very closely tied to the Brandywine Valley, a ton of history here, Revolutionary War history, Civil War history. A lot of buyers go there because there's more privacy, bigger lots, almost a rural lifestyle. I don't know, I always sound so silly saying rural, whatever. Very appealing to luxury buyers, very easy access to the main line, very easy access to Wilmington, Delaware, Kennett Square, Westchester. It was a great place to grow up. For me, it's a great place to live now. And then Paoli, so very similar to Malvern, unbelievably easy train access. We're mainline adjacent here. Good access to 30 or Lancaster Ave. Route 202 access is pretty easy. Easy access to King of Prussia. The actual downtown, I wouldn't say has a ton of living in it. There are a few townhomes and apartment buildings in there, but 2 minutes out, 3 minutes out, and you start hitting that pure suburban residential feel. So another best of both worlds. Also, shout out Sasano's, the best chicken Caesar wrap in the Philly suburbs. It's incredible. I might have to stop and get one today on the way to pick up the kiddos. And then Berwyn, very desirable Western mainline community. It's stunning. If you go to my Instagram, I have a few videos of home walkthroughs in Berwyn recently. The homes are beautiful. Another place where you get a little more land. It's a little, for what you're getting, it's more affordable than some of those classic mainline towns a little further south, a little closer to Philly. Very easy to get to Ardmore, very easy to get to Wayne. Very compelling choice for a lot of relocators. A place I tell a lot of people to look because you have access to almost everything there. Devon, very similar feel to Berwyn. Depending on where you are in both, you can get a little more like we're in a town feel, a little more village feel, or totally rural. So it could be almost anything you want for those places. Wayne, shout out Wayne. We talked about it a lot in the mainline guide that I put up, I believe, yesterday. Maybe my favorite town in the Philly suburbs. Very easy to walk to, 3-4 minutes out. Again, you're in a full residential feel. Schools are extremely highly ranked. It's polished, it's active. Some of the best restaurants in the Philly suburbs are there. Some of the best boutique shopping in the Philly suburbs are there. It's great. Chester Springs, Broad, very highly desirable. A little further west than some of these mainline adjacent towns, but a relatively similar feel. Right by Route 100, 113. Big range in housing there. So it can be from historic properties to luxury homes to new developments and planned communities. Big range of stuff you can get in Chester Springs, but a beautiful area. And then Glenmore, I was just there filming, it's like yesterday, my goodness. So check out, if you want to see what a home looks like in Glenmore, go to my Instagram, check that, I'm just pointing over there, like I'm linking it across the room. Much more rural feel, not a walk to dinner place, but you can get a ton of land much more cheaply than a lot of the other places we've discussed so far. It's beautiful, slower lifestyle, a great place if that is what you are looking for. And then Coatesville, I would say a different vibe than the premium Chester feel or the mainline adjacent markets, some of which we've talked about. It's Chester County's only city by classification. I wouldn't call it a city. It doesn't feel like you're going into Philly. It doesn't feel like you're going into Wilmington. But a lot of ongoing redevelopment. There is historic housing stock. There are a lot of new neighborhoods coming up there. I actually have a couple of buyers looking in that area. I think we're going there again tomorrow. So from an investment perspective, from an affordability perspective for access to Western Chester County, it is a great place to look. So those are the big towns that I think a lot of people when they're relocating think about. Obviously, there are a ton of others. Chester County is a big place. So if you have questions about them, either drop them in the comments below, shoot me a DM. You can just reach out to me via my website. However you want to get in touch with me, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So I'm just going to go really broad swaths with the townships, just let you know what they are. I'll talk about these a lot more as I'm going through the towns, and you'll figure out which slot into each. I'll kind of touch that now. But I'll just hit on the big stuff for these and kind of try and power through. So Tredyffrin, if you've heard of Conestoga High School, that's where this is. So Paoli, Berwyn, Chesterbrook, Wayne, and Devon. Very strong demand here, a lot of seller power here, partially driven by the schools, partially driven by the location. It's a great place to live. My wife and I were living there for a very long time. It's beautiful. Then you have Easttown Township, a lot of times combined with Tredyffrin. Again, very high quality schools, a lot of competition here. Sellers are still in power, have a lot of leverage here. But a beautiful place to live, a lot of nearby mainline amenities and attractions, so it's cool. Willistown, save Willistown. If you want a quieter, more pastoral, village-like lifestyle, I would check out Willistown. A lot of horse farms there, a lot of regular farms there, a lot of huge luxury living there if that's what you're interested in. So Malvern, Paoli, Newtown Square, the main line. All of this can be found in Willistown. East and West Whiteland townships. I would say convenience hubs, a lot of practicality here. You have a lot of roads meeting, so 202, 30, Route 100, easy commuting access. You can certainly find value here. A lot of shopping, a lot of restaurants, but you're going to find that different pockets in these townships give you different things. So an interesting place to dive into if you are relocating and aren't super familiar with the area. East and West Goshen. I would say these are driven by Westchester. Westchester is the big driver in this area. So if you understand Westchester, you have a pretty good sense of what these townships are like. And then Kennett, driven by Kennett Square, dining, charm, a more village-like feel. It feels like a Hallmark movie there. That's probably the best way I can describe it, with a bunch of history there, older home stock, larger lots. It's very nice there. Schuylkill Township, Schuylkill, Schuylkill. Sits near Phoenixville, strong mix of convenience and neighborhood living. Very easy access, whether you're going to KOP, need to get to the train, or just need to get to a major highway. It's a great place to be. It's a beautiful place to live. We're very close now. Hey guys, we'll jump right back in a second, but first I want to offer you something for free. So I have spent over 75 hours putting together my comprehensive buying guide, and this is for first-time home buyers. This is for someone who is an experienced home buyer and just wants a little bit more information on how to navigate an appraisal gap. The guide covers everything. So I spoke to tons of home buyers, past clients, current clients, any agent that would talk to me about this so that I could give you as much information as possible. And the best part is you don't have to pay for a thing. So if you're interested in this guide, either check out the link in the description below or DM me buying and I will get it right over to you. All right, back to the video. Okay, so there are a bunch more. I'm not going to dive through them all. I feel like people care more about towns than townships. One thing I will say, and we're going to dive into schools, so this is a good transition. Just because you're in a township doesn't mean you're in the school that shares a name with that township's district. So as you're looking at homes, let's say you're like, we're only going to look at Tredyffrin Township. You're not always going to be in that Conestoga High School pipeline, just as an example. So confirming your districting as you're looking at specific properties is extremely important. I don't want you to regret buying a home because you saw a different township, but now your kids are going to go to a school that you didn't imagine them going to. So a big thing to confirm. Okay, so let's talk about schools, taxes, and monthly payments. I always joke, in terms of rankings, you could put a map of the Philly suburbs up on a wall and throw a dart. You're going to hit a good school. But like I just said, very important if schools matter to you and whatever schools fit whatever desire you have for your children to get out of a school, that's what you need to be focused on. I can provide metrics on schools, I can provide rankings on schools, but figuring out the right school for you is your job, essentially. So understanding all the different schools, what they offer. So Tredyffrin Easttown, think Conestoga, Great Valley, Westchester, Unionville, where I was for a while, O&J Roberts, Coatesville area, Downingtown West, Downingtown East. All of these different schools are going to offer different things. They're going to come with different strengths, different weaknesses. So figuring out which one fits your needs and the needs of your children is a big thing to focus on if schools matter to you. They also impact resale liquidity and long-term home value. So if that's something you care about and you think you are going to be selling in the future, good school districts typically maintain value better and they sell for higher prices because the competition is higher. So understanding all of that is important to understanding how and where to live in Chester County. So the next piece, taxes. Chester County taxes are driven by a combination of municipal, school taxes, and location-dependent taxes. So school taxes are typically the largest component. So the same purchase price, depending on the school district you're in, could have a very different monthly payment. So understanding that and factoring that in is important as well. So the best way to evaluate your overall purchase price that you're willing to do, I believe, is to figure out what that purchase price will amount to in terms of monthly payment, and then break that figure down by principal, interest, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and HOA fees or condo association fees, if applicable. That gives you a really specific idea of what you can do per month, which you just reverse it back out and you figure out what your price floor is, typically based on what you're looking for in a home, and what your price ceiling is, hopefully determined by your all-in monthly payment. I also like to throw commute prices into that. So if you have a monthly parking fee, if you're going into Philly or DC or New York, if you have a monthly public transport fee, so if you're doing a SEPTA pass, if you're spending money on gas, all of that should go into your monthly fee too, because that is a cost that comes with living in a specific place, which is part of buying a home in a specific place. So understanding all of that, Chester County has a huge range of housing stock and has a huge range of municipal and school taxes. So all of this is going to be nuances that you dive into as you start looking at specific properties. If you have any questions about a specific property, if you're hoping to get a home search set up, all of that I can absolutely help with. Just reach out. And then, so I'm going to talk a little bit about things to do and places to eat. If you want weekly things like that, head over to my Instagram or my TikTok. Again, youthful, vibrant. I don't get TikTok, but whatever. What can you do? I'm out there, baby. But I give weekly stuff that's happening in the upcoming weekend in all of these locations. As I said before, I'm going to be doing town breakdowns, so I'll give much more information on the shops, the restaurants, what's available to do in those areas. But I'm just going to hit the big ones. So in terms of suburban town centers that people go to that have good restaurants, that have good shopping, the big ones in Chester County I think of are, and I'm going to throw Wayne in the mainline one because I've already made a video about that, but it's a great one. But Westchester, Phoenixville, and Kennett Square. I think those are the three big ones in Chester County. Pottstown's great too, but a little north of where we're looking. I feel like a lot of people in Pottstown aren't necessarily always commuting back into Philly, and it's a relocation guy, whatever. You can't touch everything. In addition, some of the big attractions in Chester County, I would say Longwood Gardens is probably at the top. It's nationally, internationally renowned. It's a beautiful place. I love going along with gardens, go there with my kids, niece and nephew, my sister, my parents. It's fantastic. It's the best. But there are a ton of trails. You have the Radnor Trail very close. You have Valley Forge Historic Park. You can go see where George Washington really stuck it to the redcoats. So there are a ton of things to do both inside and outside. I will give you more information on all of those because it doesn't make sense for me to walk through like 80 restaurants just randomly. You need some context on where this is, and then you can start placing the restaurants and all of that. So we'll dive into that in future videos. Now, last thing we're going to do before I do a brief summary of all this is some frequently asked questions. So is Chester County one market or does it vary by town? As I'm sure I've drilled into your head by now after talking at your face for this long, Chester County is a bunch of different markets, ranging all the way from that 50-50 suburban city feel in these major towns with strong train access that almost feels like an extension of Philly, all the way through that mainline adjacent kind of luxury, however you want to define that term, market feel. Then you have that classic suburban residential feel with easy access to shops, dining in like the Exton, Downingtown area. And then it gets full, almost rural when you get into the Chadds Ford area, moving out past Coatesville, Glenmore, all of those areas. So anything you are looking for in the Philly suburbs, I promise you can find it in Chester County. It's just a matter of figuring out what you want. Which Chester County towns are the best for walkability? So I wrote Malvern down in my guide. I don't know if it matches Westchester, Phoenixville, and Kennett Square for walkability. These are true. You can park your car on one side of town, walk all day and be entertained, find great food, find good shopping, and then walk back across town. And you will have truly spent a day doing that. Malvern, you can do a little more quickly than that. So, you're living a little further out often. So I would say Westchester, Phoenixville, and Kennett are my big three for that, with an honorable mention to Malvern. What is the biggest mistake relocators make when moving to Chester County? Not narrowing down enough. They narrow down to a town, but don't understand that even within those towns, you're going to get huge differences. For example, I really grew up in like that Chadds Ford, Kennett Square area, but when you're mailing stuff to us, Westchester was the address. But it was a very different Westchester. Like, we were near horses, we were near cows. We drove for a long time without hitting like a stoplight. It was like we were out there. But when people think Westchester, they think the town of Westchester. And you would have been maybe upset if you wanted just a full town feel being out there, or you wouldn't even look there if you thought all of Westchester was just the downtown Westchester area. So you need to understand, even if you're narrowing down to town, you need to narrow down further based on the homes that you're actually considering. What Chester County areas are best for commuting? So there's two ways to think about it. If you want to commute by rail, either stay on that Paoli or Thorndale line. So being in Paoli, Malvern, very easy commuting. Being in Thorndale, Exton, Downingtown, very easy commuting. But if you're driving, it's almost, part of it is just the closer you get to Philly, the faster it's going to be. But it'll also be faster if you're near these major highways. So if you're close to 30, if you're close to 202, 100, whatever it might be. So it can all vary, depends on how you want to commute. What Chester County towns are best for families? All of them. They're all the best. It depends what you want for your family. If you really want a specific school, being there is the best for you. You should look at other schools though, because they're great. If you want a downtown where you can take your family to go out and eat, you should be looking at Westchester, Phoenixville, Kennett. If you want just a ton of land and you're going to be homeschooling your kids, which great, whatever you want to do, then you should be looking a little further out, maybe the Chadds Ford area, maybe Berwyn, maybe out in Glenmore, whatever it is. So it's going to vary depending on what you want for your family, but I promise you Chester County offers it. Is Chester County good for buyers relocating from New York, New Jersey, or DC? I relocated from DC. I'm in Chester County. it's the best. We're super happy. We always joke, we have friends obviously still in DC, and we see them every once in a while, and for a long time we were commuting there every once in a while for work as well. And it's nice because like you get to see your friends, and that's always a lovely time, but like we don't miss the city at all. And I think it's partially because Chester County offers so much. All of like the land and the space and privacy that we wanted, we got, but we're not missing out on any of the excitement because it's easy for us to get into Philly. We have Phoenixville, Paoli, Malvern right around us. It takes us 20 minutes to get to Westchester, which is like its own standalone place. So I think it's great. I think it's a perfect balance of still having access to all the amenities that you came to love in a city, but getting everything that you wanted now that you're considering leaving a city, which for a lot of people is green, it's space, it's privacy, it's land. Chester County is great for that. Should I prioritize the house, town, or school district first? You need to figure out your daily routine when determining this. For example, you might think that school district has no factor. Maybe your kids are grown, maybe you're going to homeschool, maybe you just don't care where they go to school. But it's a factor in terms of your long-term home value. It's a factor in terms of the competition out there. It's a factor in terms of seller leverage in negotiations, or house. I mean, at a base level, if you need 4 bedrooms, you shouldn't be looking at 2-bedroom houses and vice versa. So it's not really prioritizing any one of these. It's getting the complete picture of what your life is going to need, and then finding the location, the house style, the school district, the town that fits all of those things, which is why doing maybe an extra day of work on the front end can save you weekends and weekends worth of work on the back end when it comes to showings, offers, closing, all of that. What should I look for when touring homes in Chester County? Part of it is stuff I've discussed so far. So does the town that you're closest to provide what you need? Is the land that you're looking at giving you what you need? Do the schools around you provide or don't provide what you need? And then some specifics, it's going to vary there. So there's a lot of new construction happening in Chester County. You're going to have to look at different things there. For older housing stock, different parts of the buying process can be more stressful. For example, appraisals and inspections in new construction operate very differently than older housing stock, where maybe there aren't a ton of comparables, especially that have moved recently. Inspections can get a little dicier. If it's a pre-78 home that hasn't sold since then, now we're getting into lead-based paint. So it's very dependent on what you're looking at and how you want to be looking. But I have full guides on how to navigate appraisals, how to navigate inspections, open houses, the whole deal. So if you do have more questions about the specifics of what you should be looking for, please check those out. I promise they will answer those questions. And if they don't, just call me. You don't have to be working with me to call me. I love talking about this stuff. So I'll answer any questions you have. You don't need to sign papers and sign your life away. We can just have a chat. So the bottom line, I promise you, no matter where you're moving from, no matter what you're looking for, if you want to be in the Philly suburbs, Chester County has a place that fits what you need. I promise you it does. Now, is it going to be the exact place for you? Maybe you should be looking in Bucks if you're going to be commuting up to New York. Maybe you should be looking at the Jersey suburbs if you're like going to be working in Camden every day. But just from a pure different types of lifestyle perspective, different housing stock perspective, different types of town perspective, Chester County has it all. It's a wonderful place to live. I grew up here. I still live here now. It's beautiful. So stick around until next time. We're going to be walking through Bucks County up north. It's where my dad grew up. It's beautiful. A lot of similarities between Chester and Bucks County, but some big differences. So we'll dive into that one next time. I hope you enjoyed the video. I love you guys. Deuces. Yikes. Deuces. Bye.